Welcome to the show. No?
I'm just a little confused. That was a French accent.
I don't know what it was.
With an Italian hand gesture.
I was going for Russian, actually.
Oh, well, that was not it.
Oh my gosh.
It just reminds me of one of our students, our first year of ministry. She could do like a spot on Russian accent. It was great.
That's great. I don't remember that for some reason.
You don't find many people who try for a Russian accent.
Yeah.
But she could do it.
That's amazing.
Anyways.
Maybe she's a spy.
She's a redhead.
In the ancient days of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall? Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?
I'm kidding.
If you didn't notice, there's only 2 people laughing. Today's Phil's birthday. Happy birthday, Phil.
Hopefully that's noticeable. If there is more than 2 people laughing, it's not coming from us, guys.
Yeah, bro, you need to get your hearing checked or have an exorcism if you're having. No, Phil's, he's at work and just didn't work out for him to be able to record with us this week. And so, happy birthday, Phil.
Happy birthday, Phil.
It'll be belated by the time this comes out, but either way,
that's okay.
He's here in spirit, so I'll just have to laugh extra hard for to embody his. Yeah, I don't know, but we're gonna. Oh.
I told you those things are overcarbonated. Well, I mean, you did. I didn't tell you.
That was
we've all
brutal.
mutually discovered.
Yeah, that was
the case of the sparkling water being overcarbonated and just like going all over the place.
I bet that sounded really good.
Okay, so here's the other thing.
To just talk about my caffeine real quick. I've had way too much caffeine today, so this will be my first podcast drinking water instead of an energy drink during it.
And we're kind of having a weird scheduled week, so we're actually recording in the evening.
Yeah, it's way late at night, and hopefully my hope is that we get to that weird delirious stage and we're not like grumpy tired with each other, but we just like laugh unnecessarily at stupid things.
I haven't been that lately.
Me either. I always just get grumpy now.
You know, my evenings being pregnant are just like I fall asleep sitting up and don't even realize.
Yeah, we started.
It's like just 0 to REM cycle. Like,
dude, for real, we started watching the crazy cat lady Cole episode so that I could watch it.
And so that I could finish it.
And I ended up finishing it and Courtney didn't. And so now I know more about what happened than she did.
Gosh.
And
Hey, you remember I was going to say something before you started talking about your drink?
Oh yeah, what were you going to say?
I don't remember.
Oh,
that's why I wanted to.
Lame.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
Oh,
okay, there we go. That never happens.
Wow.
Okay, we recorded on my birthday. Now we're recording on Phil's birthday, but he's not here. He was originally going to be here, but now he's not here. So we've got to record on your birthday too.
Dude,
it just
I would
has
love
to work
to.
out.
I would unironically love to do an episode on my birthday.
Yeah, you get all hyped.
I'm always in a weird mood on my birthday, especially if I get to play some disc golf.
Weird good?
Yeah. Like,
okay. Don't call that weird then.
Well, it's weird because it's like, I don't know, when you're in your 30s, you don't really like getting older. So I don't like that. But like, I don't know, I always set my alarm to the same song. It's been how many years since Thor Ragnarok came out? And every year I set my alarm on my birthday to the "It's My Birthday" song. That was spot on. And
great.
But anyway, I set my birthday alarm so when I wake up in the morning, it just sets the mood for the whole day.
For the whole week, actually.
Yeah,
because
for
then
real.
you forget to turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the same alarm.
So it's his birthday 4 days in a row.
It just, I don't know, it just makes the tone. And then we usually go out as long as I don't have to work or anything, we usually go out and play some disc golf, weather permitting, grill some steaks, have friends over. Like, it's been the same thing, like, almost every year. Or we might go up to, like, a Spearfish Canyon and go hiking or something like that. But still, like, disc golf is involved and steaks involved. Like, do you want to know the way to make Tanner happy?
Yeah.
Disc golf, steak, family, friends. Like, that's it.
Nice.
That's all it really takes. And so we don't go crazy. But anyway, we're way talking about birthday things. But anyway, but it's in honor of Phil. I sent, and
sure.
Then
it's all about you, but it's an honor.
I do. If you're a friend of mine, you've probably got a text on your birthday, because I used to send memes.
Yes.
And then it turned into, like, I would actually, like, my buddy Caesar, I would, like, find funny pictures of him in his past and then make memes. Mm-hmm. So then other people wanted them, so I started making meat, and it got to a point where I was just like, spread too thin. It was like every day I was having to come up with a meme, and I burnt out on it. And so this year, I actually have a meme ready to go for Caesar for his birthday of a picture that his sister had shared. Oh. It's primo, like, it is top notch meme.
I look forward to it.
I missed his birthday. Oh no. So I got to wait like another 10 months for it to come back around so that I could send it to him. But anyway, it's just a story. Okay. So I made memes for people, and then I got burnt out. But then I had people, like, mad at me because I wasn't sending them memes on their birthday. And I was like, okay, so I'll just send it to people who are mad at me. And then I realized, I was like, that's not fun for me at all in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so I stopped doing the memes. So now I just send people a YouTube link to the It's My Birthday song, and then tell them to turn their music up way loud and just trust me. And I guarantee 0 of them have ever actually trusted me and just listened to it. But man, their life would be so much better if they just trusted me.
Okay, so you've already, like, redirected us once, and now you need to redirect yourself again. Because you were still talking about birthdays.
Crazy cat lady.
Why'd you point at me when you said that?
Because you're the one who brought it up and initially shared it with us.
Okay, but it still was, like, accusatory.
So
like, you were calling me the...
No, not at all. You're the crazy cat lady storyteller.
Okay.
Not the crazy cat.
Okay.
But can I share us a little bit of a spoiler from the episode just for do you want to watch it? We can wait. We'll let Courtney share the spoiler next week. But in the spirit of the cult episode last week, man, I went down a rabbit hole. Gosh, I'm so bad at that. I went down a rabbit hole, and, like, okay, it's going to get real hard real quick. Like, it was serious. I went so hard on this subject that this is the first time we've had a topic that I feel like coming out of it, maybe the giant episode, that I actually feel like it changed me a little bit. Oh. Like, it broke me the other night. I don't know if you remember. I learned, and man, this is a crazy one. So, to keep it a little lighthearted before we get into the craziness, I was actually talking to my brother-in-law and your brother-in-law anyway, we were talking about the Giants, the redheaded Giants again. And we were talking about it, and he was talking about, when he was overseas as well. We were just kind of talking a little bit about it. And then I remembered that we have a person in our Discord who's helping me to try to uncover as much of the story as we possibly can with, like, documentation. As you would expect, we keep finding the age-old, we can neither confirm nor deny, or we can't give that information to you because it is a operative secret, or, it's sensitive information and stuff like that. And so, unfortunately, every time we find something that looks like it could actually be that scenario, the government's like, sorry, sensitive information. But we can confirm that somebody named Dan did actually decease in the Kandahar Mountains. So, at the very least, through the Freedom of Information Act, we've been able to at least confirm the name of the person. So far, now, it's one thing to, I guess, what I would say is we haven't found that smoking gun, like, piece of information that's, like, gonna confirm it.
Right.
But everything that we've found, there's not a single thing that has been able to refute it. Nothing so far has been able to refute it. But again, can't really confirm it. But it's such a fun story, and that's actually probably my favorite single standalone story from the podcast. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's good.
the giants of Kandahar.
Yeah.
Looking in the Bible, or not looking in the Bible. Speaking of that story, the David. Sorry, my brain is just like malfunctioning right now. Is it HBO or Netflix came out with that series?
You were just looking; it was on Netflix.
Yeah, my brother watched it, and he said that so far, which my brother's not like super biblically knowledge based. What'd I say?
What are you talking about? Which
David.
series?
There's a series called David that they came out with. It's like mainstream. So I don't know. What platform. It's not.
I don't know what platform.
I'm not sure who produced it or what, but my brother was watching it. He's not super biblical in like his understanding of all that stuff, but he said that it was very entertaining, and they did have the quote of the in those days there were giants and after. And so it talks about Goliath, and it uses that quote, and I was like, man, how in the world did like this secular company, I think it's secular, maybe it is put out by the same people who did
do you need to pause and figure it out?
No,
because you're getting caught on it.
No, it's not that important, but anyway, I think it's a secular company producing it, or at least it's for secular streaming device, and they caught that quote, and from like how long I went without actually catching that it says and after that,
right?
Like, how did I miss that? Is this a Mandela effect? Am I crazy?
No, I don't know.
Or has it always said that? I swear I've read that 1,000 times.
Of like, it seems like generation to generation, people just like disregard or skip over or misinterpret apart from the Bible, and then move on. And like 10 years go by, and they're like, oh yeah, well, this is what it actually means, and here's the historical backing of it, and this and that. And it's like, did we have this before and we just lost it and got stupid for a while, and now we just like rediscovered it, or like what? Or is God revealing knowledge as we go on, or like, I don't know what.
I don't know.
And then that reminds me of the Parks and Rec episode where with the colt in the park that plays the flutes and waits for the lizard to come and like melt the flesh off their bodies or whatever. And then he's like, I went back and I studied the text, and I actually made some grave mistakes in the estimated date of the apocalypse. And that's actually going to be this date now, and so it feels like that. It's like, oh wow, we just didn't notice this. Yeah. But now we do.
Oh, but now we know.
And it's
There was that one what was it? The 80 reasons the rapture will occur in 1980, or 89 reasons it'll occur in 1989 or whatever. It was a book series or a book, and obviously it wasn't right. But anyway, there was also an update on the Shroud of Turin that they have confirmed. They've gone through and tested it a few more times lately, and I think we talked about it briefly in the episode, but the results have been published and stuff, and 100% like they're like confirmed that it is from around 2000 to like 1950 years old.
Wow.
So it is from Jesus's time.
Wow.
Like confirmed.
Wow.
And they tested a few other things with it and like legit confirmed now. So that's they've allowed them to test it again and stuff. So that's kind of crazy.
I started out kind of skeptical about that, and
Me
I
too.
find my skepticism's kind of wearing down about it.
Dude, doing this podcast in general.
It's like, even still, like that thing has lasted that long.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know.
Doing this podcast in general has caused me to be less skeptical. Skeptical.
A full-on Kool-Aid drinker. There's Kool-Aid in my stomach instead of water, guys.
Yeah. For real though.
Anyways.
Yeah. But all that stuff. The Pope's not doing very good.
Yeah.
So there's conspiracy theories that he's already passed and that they're just lying that he's not, so that they can prep things for when he does.
But they did that for Biden too.
But they did that exactly. But dude, the Biden things, some of that stuff with him like super like 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
There was definitely some weird stuff. Now, whether this is the real Biden or not, we'll never know. But there was definitely some weird things that happened around then. But speaking of some weird things, do we want to get going in the topic for today?
Yeah. For sure. Baby just kicked me really hard.
Oh, he's ready to go.
He's like, Dad, just get on topic.
Yeah, stop talking. So this actually transitioned really well. So you remember recently with all the fog stuff going around?
Yeah.
Like it was weird fog and all this other stuff. We have had more fog in like 6 months than I can remember having in the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it's been foggy all the time.
Do you remember that one day that we just had fog come through and it wasn't even on the forecast? Then I started getting a sinus infection by the end of the day.
Well,
just out of nowhere.
I don't get sick. But
Yeah.
I caught
was
whatever that
weird.
flu thing is going around.
Yeah.
That quote
Not to be
unquote
like,
is going around.
this is what this is. But I was just
did.
like, but yeah, you were like,
I got sick from it.
You were
I
like,
don't get
you
sick.
were like, come outside and smell the fog. It does smell weird. And I'm like, Tanner, you're getting a little nutso about this. And I couldn't smell much anyways.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. It smells fine to me. But then I had a sinus infection by the end of the day. So
MKUltra
okay.
actually started as a program called Operation BlueBird. And one of the main things that happened during Operation
BlueBird.
BlueBird,
Okay.
one of the main things that happened during Operation BlueBird was a operation called Operation Sea Spray.
Oh.
And outside of San Francisco, they sprayed inside of fog and basically like created a fog that enveloped San Francisco with a bacteria in order to test it.
That was in San Francisco.
It was in San Francisco in 1950.
Didn't they do something like that in New York too? Or was that something else? Either way,
I'm not sure.
it's one of those
But
like
they wanted to test how susceptible U.S. cities would be to
airborne
pathogens like
and,
bioweapons.
Warfare.
So they tested this and they found that almost all of the city's 800,000 residents at that time in 1950, almost all of them were exposed to it.
You just said reticence.
Reticence. Bro, it's late.
Like
it's
Mazagine?
about to get goofy tonight.
Mazagine.
I'm hitting that point. But yeah, so
Tanner used to say Mazagine instead of
I
magazine
still
when he was growing
do.
up.
It's still Mazagine is more natural to say than magazine.
Cute. It's really cute.
So Mazagine.
Anyways,
Yeah, so all 800,000 residents showed exposure. And
crazy.
And a dude had a complication and died from it.
Wow.
And
Just one dude though?
Just one. I know that, just one.
I would probably be that one person.
But they covered it up. Yeah, I know, right?
They covered it up.
They covered it up.
Oh my gosh.
And it didn't get released till way later.
Wow.
But they can confirm that one dude did actually pass away from complications from it. Now, everybody else, there might have been more, but that was the only one that was like, you could definitively show that like this dude would have but he had other complications, quote unquote. So because he had other complications, he might not have died from it, quote unquote.
Our whole show is now just, if you think the government wouldn't do something like that, guess what? They did.
Oh, today gets worse.
I know.
This is, if you haven't read the title or sensed the energy yet, we're talking about MKUltra. Ultimately, that's the main thing we're talking about today. And man, this one, I've been excited about this one, but nervous about this one. And so I've chose not to deep dive into it until we did an episode on it.
Yeah.
And frankly, like, this is one of those episodes where like, it's tough to learn some of this stuff and come out with it and pretend like you're like, I don't know. If you're not a conspiracy theorist before you learn about the real MKUltra,
Right.
of what we know, I should put it that way. If you don't come out of what we know about MKUltra, a conspiracy theorist, bro, I don't know what would do it.
Well, just saying, like, in years past, I've been super skeptical of all the MKUltra kind of stuff, and I honestly don't know a ton about it. So, but I've become less skeptical since experiencing, like, extreme sleep deprivation as a postpartum mom.
Yeah.
And realizing, like, how impressionable my mind actually was during that. And just parents, but, like, I kind of had a rough go postpartum. Yeah. And so it was, so I don't know. I feel like I've never been more open-minded about this, but also I'm just kind of like a clean slate with it too, because I've heard bits and pieces. And then obviously, like, I've watched Stranger Things, and I know Stranger Things was more based off of, is it the Murdoch files? Montauk. Does that play into this at all?
Okay, that is one where if I had a little more time, I'd have looked into it a little deeper.
That's
but
fine.
I want to do a Montauk episode that's separate. And so I chose not to look into that a whole lot, just in case, because I kind of want to save it for if we do that episode.
Okay, well, we'll keep that bug in their ears for...
Yeah. Okay.
But I feel like I've never been more open-minded, but also just, like, lay it on me.
Yeah.
So I will be
Okay.
reacting in real time to this because I didn't do any research for myself.
Yeah.
I am getting there in my pregnancy, guys. In just a few weeks you will probably not hear my voice
Yeah.
at least for a while pretty dependently because I will be experiencing the extreme sleep deprivation again. Not just me, probably Tanner too, but
Yeah, most
I will
likely.
have a newborn who will not adhere to a nap schedule, considering my toddler barely does right now anyways. And yeah, so
So
you want to get going?
might
What's
as well.
What's a good place to start?
So I want to start where we ended yesterday. So I
Okay.
just so you know, like this might be a two-parter.
Yeah.
I have 7 pages of notes that I took.
Oh my gosh, that's more than your sermons.
The most notes I've
was a
ever
joke.
had, I know, but for real, it is actually. The most notes I've had for an episode so far has been 2.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So this might be a two-party.
So it might be good that, Phil's not here because then I can just let you monologue a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, but also I don't want to monologue too much. And if this turns into a two-parter, awesome.
Don't on a monologue.
Not a monologue.
Okay, but yeah, no, like, I had to step out of the room for the ending of last week's episode to, comfort our son who woke up early from his nap because I didn't make it through the episode again. So I had to go back and listen as a listener once you posted last week's episode and get caught up. So I just listened to that and my head is spinning and oh my gosh. So I hope I keep the details straight and then you add the late hour we're recording and stuff. But this is like some crazy nuts kind of stuff. Like, oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we'll pick up where we left off last week. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, go listen to it, come back to this one.
Mm-hmm.
It'll really help you, at least in this part. So last week we were talking about Charles Manson.
Yeah.
And the hypothetical that possibly he could have been MKUltra. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that all hinges around a scientist nicknamed Jolly West. Jolly West, and to kind of recap last week, talked about how Jolly West claimed he wasn't a part of MKUltra. However, there was an author of a book. The name of the book is called Chaos. And actually, fun fact, Netflix just made it into a documentary.
Yes, that's what I thought you were talking about earlier.
It releases on Friday.
Wow.
So we can actually if you listen to this when it comes out and you catch it before Friday, maybe this weekend we could do a watch party or something in the Discord or we'll see. But anyway, it'd be kind of fun. And so you might get a chance to rehear all this information. But Netflix, it literally comes out this next Friday.
Wow.
Whatever. Today's the 3rd. So it'd be
He's
7th?
counting on his fingers.
Is that the 7th? My
was doing the
brain.
same.
Dude, it's too late at night to be thinking about time and numbers. But anyway, it comes out on Friday of March, the first week of March. So if you're hearing this live, if you're hearing this later, it's already out. It's called Chaos. It's about the Charles Manson thing, literally what I was talking about last week. So this all hinges around the Jolly West. And Jolly West claimed he was never a part of MKUltra. Mm-hmm. However, the author of the book, he managed to get Jolly West's college files from when he was a professor at the college. And in those files, he was able to find communication back and forth with Boudier. Boudier, who was the one who ran MKUltra up until 1973. And so it confirmed. So that little piece of detail confirmed that Jolly West was a part of MKUltra. Now, the thing about MKUltra, and this is where it's frustrating, because when the main people who were in charge of the CIA during this whole thing, when they retired, they ordered every single detail of it to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So we have no actual CIA documentation about it. None. Because they ordered everything destroyed when they retired. Obviously, they were protecting themselves, right?
Right.
However, there was a whistleblower after the fact who remembered, they destroyed all of the information. However, the financials still exist. So they went through and were able to start tracking where people purchased and where purchases were made and where grants were made and stuff like that, and started tracking down information from the universities, from the other places that they funded. And they were able to piece together some stuff.
Okay.
But the true scope and scale of MKUltra will never be known because they destroyed all the information. And it actually evolved. So MKUltra started as Operation BlueBird, and then that morphed into Operation Artichoke. It was very specific.
I never understand these operational names.
Same. And so Operation Artichoke, then eventually the CIA and the military recognized, hey, we're trying to do the same thing here. Let's just combine our resources and fund out a one big, huge honeypot. And they decided to do that. And when they did that, it birthed MKUltra, which actually eventually turned into MK Search. So MKUltra wasn't even the top dog name. It eventually became MK Search. When the whistleblower came out and basically started to expose the financials of what was going down, and they started piecing together, oh, hey, this was a little bit sketchy, it was quote unquote shut down. However, any information that they did have after 1973, because they destroyed in 1973, so they'd have information after 1973, right? All of that is classified and not released.
Nice.
And so the theory and the conspiracy theory that it continued still is a plausible thing, because how hard would it have been for them to have just changed the name and continued doing it?
Yeah.
That's honestly, after learning everything I learned, I don't see how they didn't.
That's how sketchy companies operate anyways, or like
for real.
A hospital that I do not recommend to people. It's just like, oh yeah, we got sued enough times. Let's just change the name and keep going.
Right, for real.
Yeah. No.
Not legit. And so the fact that the author of Chaos, I think his name is Tim O'Neill, the fact that he was able to find this information about Jolly West, this is as clear of documentation as we literally have. So anything else that is confirmed in MKUltra is confirmed in the same way that he confirmed that Jolly West is involved.
Yeah.
So this is a confirmation. Jolly West was the lead scientist in MKUltra. Okay?
Okay.
So Jolly West actually would have met Charles Manson before he was released from prison, before he even started the family and started the cult, because he was in prison. He got released from prison, and he would have been Manson's psychiatrist when he was still in prison, because these scientists, they like to perform things on prisoners. So they released Manson, and Manson immediately starts going to that clinic that Jolly West was in charge of.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
So after the fact, when Manson is on trial, Jolly West inserted himself into the picture. And I don't think I talked about this last week because I didn't know it. Jolly West inserted himself into the trial as the main psychiatrist who was interviewing Manson during the whole trial. It doesn't... That's not even the biggest piece of information about Jolly West. So for me, after learning what I've learned about all of this, I have a hard time seeing Manson not as an MKUltra.
Like a part of it.
It makes more sense to me to see him as an MKUltra than as not.
Yeah.
But as I continue to share about MKUltra, I want to finish with Charles Manson again, but we're going to kind of leave that for a bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're going to focus on Jolly West. So Jolly West also inserted himself into a couple other really big, high-profile cases. There was a guy named Ruby who assassinated the guy who assassinated JFK.
Okay.
You remember how JFK was assassinated?
Yeah.
And then his assassin... remember?
Assassinated. Okay.
Yep. So Jolly West inserts himself into that all of a sudden, and he's the main psychiatrist for Ruby.
Okay.
Ruby comes out of that. Ruby literally comes out of that, and he straight up says, I don't remember doing this. I don't remember a thing from it.
What?
Yeah. I'll just let that sit there for a second.
Full-on sleeper agent, then, is what the implication. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Jolly West also inserted himself as the main psychiatrist to another high-profile case, the Unabomber.
Oh my gosh.
So Jolly West, the known lead scientist of MKUltra, sets himself up into these profile cases and is the lead psychiatrist for them. He inserts himself into the picture, pops in there, and then these people literally claim. So the Unabomber, when he was arrested, he claimed that in interrogation, they took a chip out of his bum.
Oh my gosh.
Now, whether they did that or not.
Oh my gosh.
But this is a bit later. This is 20 years later after Manson.
Oh my gosh.
So Jolly West keeps popping up in these cases.
Yeah.
Well, one of the first cases that Jolly West popped into it was a case of an airman and an airman. Airman. It's late. Airman doesn't sound like a right word. Airman?
Well, I'm trying to understand. Airman?
Airman?
Like a pilot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's late. My brain isn't processing words correctly.
You're good.
But so Jolly West. So there was this case when Jolly was working with the military, and there was an airman who went in for treatment for migraines, and that's all he had, migraines.
Oh my gosh.
Upright citizen, no problems, no issues, loved by everybody around him. Was a solid guy, was working his way through this pretty quick, but he'd have these migraines that would just cripple him.
Yeah.
And in the military, you can't, that's dangerous,
Especially flying.
So,
stuff.
right. So he volunteered for trial treatment, and he goes in for this treatment for migraines. Mm-hmm. And Jolly West is the person who's treating him for these.
Okay.
They give him experimental drugs, and he goes in pretty regularly for these migraine treatments. And as a military man, he's pretty much subject to whatever they're going to do for him during that period of time. And so this airman goes through all that, and he ends up getting out, and he's on leave from the military. And one day a little kid goes missing and is unalived. And somebody reports that there was a dude walking through the woods, and this airman comes out of the woods, and he's covered in scratches, and he can't remember a thing.
Oh my gosh.
And they determine that when that kid in the surroundings, the story surrounding the kid going missing, like it was during a heat wave. His parents or her parents took him to a bar, and then it was like midnight, and they were letting this 3-year-old play out in the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
Like dumb parenting to begin with, but at the same time, like this kid's innocent. And so this airman comes walking out of the woods, got all these cuts and all that stuff. And they immediately put him on a trial for the death of this kid. And here comes Jolly West.
Oh my gosh.
He's going to save the day and become the prosecuting doctor on psychiatrist in order to see about this. And this airman can't remember a single thing. Eventually, through quote unquote testing, Jolly West was able to quote unquote extract his memories of this event. And the airman claims that all he remembered was that he had a older sibling who was trying to hurt him sexually.
Okay.
And he was fighting back against that older relative. Now the question is, did Jolly West insert a false memory in order to get him to claim guilty? Or did Jolly West actually extract what the airman was seeing when he was basically being a sleeper agent? Like, that's all hypothetical because we don't know.
I'm confused.
But Jolly West inserted himself into that picture.
Okay.
So clearly this airman, I mean, he's the leading scientist for MKUltra. Mm-hmm. This airman is MKUltra'd. I don't know another way around that. Why is he reinserting himself after the fact, after treating him for quote unquote migraines?
I've heard this for I don't know if it was like a lawyer or another psychiatrist or something like that, but just like, I feel like I've heard this trend before. Yeah. I don't think it was for this specific case, but just like this dude shows up, then yeah.
Yeah.
And
shortly, right after this airman, this whole thing happens, Jolly West sends a letter to Boudieg, and in the letter, he claims that he was successfully able to extract real memories from people and replace them. So, did he extract the real memories of this guy hurting this kid and replace them with fake memories? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Gosh.
What did he do to this airman? Because why is he sending this letter right after this case happens?
We need a pensive.
It makes for real.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. So this Jolly West dude, he's no bueno. He's not a good dude.
Yeah, no.
And he claims that he was never a part of MKUltra because he would never do LSD tests on humans and stuff like that.
But extracting and manipulating a patient's quote unquote patient's memories, that's okay though.
But one of the things that he's the most famous for, the actual famous for, is that he killed a zoo elephant by overdosing it on LSD.
Oh my gosh, dude.
So clearly he was trying out
my
the
gosh.
LSD.
He's
So
just like, guys, it's inhumane. Let's try it on animals first.
that's Jolly West for you.
Whoa.
So Jolly
Why is
West,
he called Jolly then?
because his middle name is like Jolliffe or something like that. So they just called him Jolly West.
Oh my gosh.
I can't remember. It's a weird. It's not Jolly, but it's like Jolliffe or Jolliffe or something like that. Holliff. But yeah, so his nickname was Jolly West.
Great.
Yeah. So that kind of, in my opinion, is that little. Here you go.
Yeah.
To the Jolly West connection to Manson. And now I kind of want to go back and listen to our last week's episode to hear what I said about Manson then, just to see how that connects in my brain that much more. So if you need to pause and go re-listen to that, now's a good time to do that, because now we're going to transition a little bit into the kind of go back, we're going to jump and skip around a little bit, because with MKUltra, that's just what it is. Yeah.
Great. Because I'm following so well in the first
I know. I am so sorry.
I'm so tired.
I am so sorry. And honestly, I don't even think it's because you're tired. I watched a documentary on this.
It's just hard to grasp.
It is.
Which I think is probably intentional. Like,
yeah, I watched a documentary, the same documentary on this like 4 times before I felt like I had even a real grasp of what MKUltra even is, and on a loose level. And today, looking at the time,
think about it. I mean, let's throw in the spiritual aspect. Even talking on a topic like this is going to have some sort of spiritual residue on it.
Oh,
you know,
dude,
like
100%.
Like when my sister was like, hey Courtney, I called you up because we're gonna watch a horror movie, but it says like, hey, like there's this special features where there's actually like they have like a recorded exorcism, but they like tell you to bless your house before you watch it, because it's like even like a DVD can have some spiritual. So like bringing up the topic of it, like it's gotta you just get like icky feeling. Icky feeling, or just like mental confusion from it. Like, I believe that, the spiritual side of things can try and do that as well. Yeah. So, yeah. But.
And I think with this topic, there's no way around it. I don't see how the demonic was not involved.
Yeah.
I don't fathom how, because it's so evil.
It's heinous.
It's so evil.
It's going beyond the bounds of what God had in mind for his creation.
Yeah.
It's manipulative. It's playing God. There's just some stuff like this that I think is just like past the line.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It makes me think of like Ultron too, where they're like, are we playing God here? And it's like, in some stuff with science, I believe that you are. If you're not like continuing on with morals, I don't think it's science anymore. I think it's, but.
Yeah. All of this is, it's straight up, it's evil.
It's power mongering.
And we good to...
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Part of the reason I firmly believe in how evil this is, the main scientist who really kind of kicked off all of this stuff was actually he was a scientist, a part of the BlueBird, back when it was Project BlueBird. And he was a Canadian scientist, but he worked with the American group really closely on all this stuff. And I'm looking at my notes. I think his last name was Olson.
Oh, okay.
His name is Ewan Cameron. Uin Cameron. But that's based off of my memory, and I can't find it in my notes, but I have so many notes that it's just taking me a bit. So if I find it after the fact, I can just go in and edit this part. But he was a Canadian scientist, and he went over to the Nuremberg trials where they were trying the German scientists after World War II.
Right.
And they were going through the trial and basically like discovering all of the heinous things that they did.
In the name of science.
And they created the pact for the countries that were involved, basically came up with this pact of like kind of like the Geneva Convention, but like the Nuremberg. And so it's specifically about like psychology and science and stuff like that, and the limitations we have.
Yeah.
Well, now we know, because we've talked about this on the show, the Operation Paperclip, where we brought Russian science or German. I keep saying Russian, German scientists.
I mean, it's kind of in the news right now. It's fine. Yeah.
Brought German scientists back to America to operate and do things. Guess who was heavily involved in MKUltra? Duh.
Yeah.
But Cameron goes over.
Kind of funny how those people who have vested interests together just kind of find each other and throw their resources in together.
Yeah. So for real though, but so Cameron, he goes over and if I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize. Or if I have the wrong guy. But the scientist is the real one. I know the story. If I don't remember his name, I'm horrible with names. Courtney knows this.
Yeah.
I am abysmal with names. So I'm really trying to get the names correct. But it was a Canadian scientist. Yeah. And he's working with the Americans. And he goes over there to the trials. And he is quoted as saying that it gave him the idea
No.
to begin the trials in America and in Canada.
So he really was just a groupie.
He was inspired by the German scientists.
Oh my gosh.
MKUltra, now you can get this idea. So Project BlueBird and then Operation Artichoke, ultimately you can get the idea that the inspiration from it came from Germany and what the German scientists were doing in World War II. And so our scientists here in America and in Canada decided we're going to start replicating that because, well, they were already doing it.
Yeah.
So
or maybe they just went about it in a slightly wrong way, but
right.
you know.
So then it turns into MKUltra.
We're North America, so we're more morally upright, right?
Right.
Totally.
Even though we're not gonna, and then, so they're literally, while they're doing the BlueBird and Artichoke, they are breaking the laws that they created when they went to the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah.
They literally created these laws, and they are the ones breaking them straight up in order to do these programs. How are you better? How are you better than the Germans at that point?
Right.
You're the same thing.
Yeah.
We just fought a war over it, and you're going to be inspired by it.
Yeah.
And then it turns into the CIA MKUltra, and then the thought process goes to, well, because the Cold War is going on. And so then the thought is, well, the Russians are already doing this, so we better do it too.
Sounds like space race. It's like, oh, well, we need to just like edge them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the I think it was the Korean War, but either way, in Korea, I know this. So reverse back to Project BlueBird, and this is the reason why I think it's kind of important to know the different names, is because it helps give you the time frame.
Yeah.
BlueBird was the 50s. Artichoke. BlueBird.
You just said BlueBird.
I have in my notes, I wrote down BlueBird.
Oh my god.
Because I misheard it the first time, and it's a Freudian. It's not even Freudian. It's just a slip in my mind.
Gotcha.
BlueBird was the initial, and then it morphed into Artichoke, which eventually became MKUltra by the late 60s.
Wow.
So 50s, the late 50s, and then early 60s is Artichoke.
Okay.
So anytime I say BlueBird, you know that I'm talking about early 50s.
Okay.
So in the Korean War,
like a Pokemon evolving. Got it.
So what kind of initiated, supposedly, and I don't believe this for a second, but what supposedly initiated all of this with BlueBird and all that is that we had some military men who got kidnapped in the Korean War, and then they allegedly were mind manipulated into admitting that they were dropping chemical and biological weapons on Koreans and testing. And that's why the Koreans held them for so long, was because they were doing these things. Well, the Americans were saying, okay, so, and this is what the record says, is that we weren't doing anything like that. So it became clear that the Koreans basically forced them, got them to truly believe, and they did.
Right.
There's all these interviews, and I watched a few of them. There's these interviews with these military men when they came back, and basically they're admitting, they're like, how can I go back home to face my family knowing that I've done all of these horrible things and blah, 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 blah. So they really truly believe that they dropped these chemical weapons and biological weapons in Korea. They really truly believe this. So our government, so our CIA is saying, well, they clearly were manipulated by Korea, and the Koreans have the ability and the technology in order to manipulate their memories to give them false memories that become a part of their identity.
Yeah.
So then they come back and they basically do more research on these people and try to figure out, quote unquote, how the Koreans were able to do this stuff. Well, now there's some research that's come out that maybe we actually did do all of this stuff.
Right.
And so what the research was that the CIA was doing was trying to erase those memories to give them back, quote unquote, their real memories, which were fake memories. That the Koreans were the ones actually manipulating. So this kicks off Project BlueBird. So
my gosh.
the project in and of itself is most likely, and this is again allegedly, most likely built on a lie from the CIA because they were actually testing stuff in Korea.
It's just who was manipulating their
Who was manipulating
minds.
who? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Dude.
So that kicks off Project BlueBird, and that kind of creates, eventually kind of creates the concept of the Manchurian Candidate. Do you know what the Manchurian Candidate is?
I've heard the term before.
So the
Explain it to me.
Manchurian specifically, and all of this was created to kind of like try to create a Manchurian Candidate. The Manchurian Candidate is basically what they do is they want to be able to manipulate a person so that they could say like a word or a phrase or an image,
So
and
like
it would
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it would create this, and they called it Hyde A and Hyde B. So, or like Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde, yeah.
And so it was a play on that. And so basically the idea was that they could say this word like, the moon is shining down below.
Right.
Something weird that wouldn't naturally come up in conversation. And that would create this split where the person's other personality that they created comes out. And then that person then could go and commit assassinations or something like that. And then when they would be done, they would say the moon is rising up above, and basically like a play on the words.
Sleeper agent. Yeah.
Yep. And it would create an A, or they would go back to the other personality. Now, the alternative use for this was the idea was that they could transport sensitive information using people that the person would never remember. So the idea is they have these sleeper agents, and this is where the sleeper agent comes into play. They have these sleeper agents that they could give them information and then
Send them out like a pigeon.
Turn them off.
Like a messenger pigeon.
Yep, turn it back off. They would go over. The person would say the code word.
Because they have the code.
They would then give the sensitive information, and then they could turn it back off, and the person would never remember it. They said the reason that is important is for two reasons. One, you can get sensitive information across wherever without it ever being risked of being exposed through paper or another means. The alternative is that if that person were to ever be kidnapped or intercepted, that no amount of torture could bring out the sensitive information because it's locked behind that paywall, so to say, that you got to insert the right code in order to bring that other personality out.
You know, I don't think I give people of that day and age enough credit for the intelligence that they supposedly apparently had.
Yeah.
I always think that they were just kind of like homely and like a little bit just kind of naive and simpletons, and no, there's concepts there that I'm still having trouble understanding decades later. So that's just nuts.
Yeah. So then you have the case with like Jack Ruby, who in 1963 he assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald. Yeah.
And then can't remember it. So, and that was before it turned into MKUltra. That was still when it was Operation Artichoke, or at least I think
that was like a prototype.
So, right around that same time. That would have been about the same time as it transitioned into MKUltra. And so if that is an actual case, which having Jolly West there for me kind of is a confirmation. I don't see another way around it.
Yeah.
How is this dude able to insert himself into one of the biggest cases in the world when he so supposedly is the one turning down any request of the government to ever be involved in this stuff? But he finds himself on literally the Manson case. So going back to the Manson case, I don't know if people know this, but up until O.J. Simpson, the Manson case was the most public and most televised case that had ever happened.
Right.
Up until O.J. Simpson, and then O.J. Simpson became the most. And so the Manson trial was not this like just random trial in California. It was the most publicized.
Right, for sure.
And so Jolly West just finds himself on the literally in the 60s, the two biggest cases, because Jack Ruby taking out Lee Harvey Oswald before he could stand trial, and then can't remember even doing it.
Wow.
And he's involved. So that tells me, at least at some level, there's a good chance they were successfully able to get people to at least forget stuff.
Okay, that just wasn't there some sort of conspiracy theory about that with Jackie Kennedy too, where they gave her drugs to manipulate her behavior because she was a very public figure, obviously, and very influential. And there was obviously like some weirdness in there with that. And I can't remember if it was when we were watching The Crown, but
because she got kind of hysterical after it happened.
Yeah, and then there was implications in that episode that he was, not treating her very well either, but then also that there was just outside pressures, and so that they would give her drugs to make her more compliant, and that her personality would come out, that famous personality she had and stuff. And I feel like they mentioned that in that episode of The Crown when she writes a letter to the Queen. Yeah. I feel like they alluded to it. Which the Crown has its own perspective of things, obviously. Right. But I feel like that just popped in my head when we were talking about Kennedy's, and I was like, wasn't there something there?
I want to come back to that really quick, but I want to finish what I was talking about with Jolly West, because there's actually something really interesting that's really short. Okay. But yeah, and so Jolly West kind of is involved in these, and so for me, it kind of shows that, okay, this is a thing. And the deal with the JFK stuff, the JFK thing is intriguing because there's new information, it's not new information, but it's newly been released information, in that there almost had to have been two shooters, because the amount of bullet fragments that were found are more than the bullet that took out JFK is missing. So there's more bullet than there should be. So it's clearly coming from multiple sources. And there is supposedly somebody who, and I found this during the MKUltra stuff, because I think they tried to MKUltra one of the witnesses who was under the overpass. Because a bullet hit near where he was at. So if a bullet hit where he was near where he was at, because a piece of they say that a piece of concrete shot up and nicked his leg, but it was most likely bullet fragment, which would mean that a bullet hit the concrete near where he was at. If that shot exists, there has to be two shooters, because Lee Harvey was only missing a certain number of bullets from his chamber or whatever. And so there would have had to have been two shooters, because that bullet proves that more bullets would have been shot than that Lee Harvey Oswald had shot. Right. Yeah. And the dude who was on their overpass, I think they tried to MKUltra him. I think that's where it popped up. But anyway, I didn't even put that in my notes, but I remember it from one of the videos I was watching. And then back to the other part of the Kennedy thing, which is the part you were talking about with the personality stuff. So the main drug of choice for the bulk of the early BlueBird, Artichoke, and MKUltra was LSD. Yeah. LSD was the main source of all this stuff. So LSD was originally invented in 1938, okay? And the guy who invented LSD basically created it originally to kind of stimulate the nervous system. And then he took a dose of it and tripped out and was like, "Oh, holy cow." And then so their laboratory begins to make LSD and sell it or whatever in the 1940s in Switzerland. Starts making mass amounts of LSD. And in the late 40s and early 50s, basically, the CIA basically decides, okay, so if this is a great tool and we're afraid the Russians will end up with it, so we're going to buy all of it.
That's just the trend that I mentioned earlier. Ha ha.
So LSD first came to America because our government brought it over. And then in the 50s, I know. And then in the 50s, the drug company Eli Lilly, they make a super duper trooper version of LSD, which is basically a synthesized LSD. And it has way bigger trips, which is basically now, from what I understand, is what LSD now is. Gotcha. But it was originally called LSB. And guess who was the first to bring that to America? Our government. Yay. The CIA brought copious amounts of it over, and then begins to distribute it to the colleges and universities to begin testing. Of course. And so LSB first finds its way to America because of our government. So these drugs are brought over by America because they were afraid, quote unquote, afraid.
Because you had to be competitive.
Because the Russians might get it first.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the 40s and 50s, our government was the main distributor of LSD and LSB to America.
Oh my gosh.
So they basically originally BlueBird, they start sending it out, and this is how all of this starts. So with Operation BlueBird, they begin to send all of the LSD and stuff out to the colleges, universities, and scientists that are wanting to run tests on it.
Okay.
They begin funding those tests. They begin spending money on those tests and encouraging them to run the psychological treatment on these people and stuff like that. Now, this is where it starts to get a little bit sketchy. Now, eventually, you fast forward in MKUltra and stuff, and so this is where the sketchy part starts, is because back then, our rando college students don't know what LSD is, and they are told they're going to receive a test treatment to deal with their things like migraines and their things like their anxiety and stuff like that. They give them this, and then they trip out.
Bet they don't have migraines anymore, or at least they're not focused on the migraines anymore.
Their focus is no longer on the migraines.
Yeah.
But it was all in the way that they convinced themselves that it was okay to do it is because, well, the Russians are already doing it.
Right.
So we've got to follow suit, because otherwise we're going to fall behind, and they're going to create all of these sleeper spy Manchurian candidates.
Like I said, oh my gosh.
Meanwhile, our government is doing it. Like, our government, we were literally pointing the finger at Russia and then doing the same thing that we were saying made them evil. So they're like, Russia is so evil, they're doing all these things. Meanwhile, our government was literally doing the same things, possibly even worse, because we can't prove that they did it, but now we can prove that we were doing it.
Yeah.
Like, we're just as bad. We were as bad as the Germans. Well, not as bad as the Germans. The Germans went a little cray-cray with the camps and stuff like that, which America also did. Whoa, what? Our government had concentration camps? Oh, yeah, for the Japanese.
Yes, they did.
And
I know from my book research.
And they did trials on them in the camps too, but that wasn't a part of this, so we're not going to talk about it. But anyway, so then they start replicating, German trials and tests, and then they begin, and the bad guy is always overseas, and we're pointing these guys are the bad guy. And our government was literally doing the same thing. Yeah. And it's documented, and we know they were.
Can I just make a quick statement?
Yeah, go for it.
Of it makes it hard for me to support a slogan like "Make America Great Again," because exposing all the crappy ways that this country was brought into prosperity, I'm just like, how great was it really? Let's just focus on
we had
exposing
money.
It.
Yeah. I don't disagree, but also
we had
talking about
traditional family values. Meanwhile, the morality of the actual government was not keeping that in mind at all. But
yeah, kind of. But speaking about that though, the CIA is like flipping out because Doge is going to audit them. Why do you think they're flipping out? The way we found out about MKUltra is because of the financials. Right. So now they're wiping files and claiming that they're going to do all this. Dude. Bro, why do you think they're flipping out? Right. I guarantee there's stuff like this, if not worse, that's still on the books.
Accountability.
Do you know, and this is just kind of random, but I did a little digging because it's one of the things, man, seriously, we're not going to have time for all this stuff, but I did a little digging and I found something out. Do you know the Stanford the Stanford experiment, the one where the prison experiment? Yes. That's like highly, this. Guess what? That was funded by our government. I didn't know that until this. I started learning about how they did MKUltra. Yeah. And because they peddled it through organizations and through all this other stuff, it was hard to trace down that it was the CIA doing it. But then their lead scientists would be people who were, quote unquote, formerly military or were formerly from the CIA or working for the CIA and all this stuff. So like the people leading the institutions in America, and there's a list of the main so the government had a few key what they called cutout organizations. So the idea was the way that they funded it and how they funneled it through the university and through these organizations was so that it didn't seem like they were being funded by the government. Yeah. So that it seemed like they were being funded by other institutions or whatever. Yeah. So the Stanford experiment, that was literally funded by our government. But because it was in Stanford, we refer to it as the Stanford experiment, the Stanford prison experiment. We don't refer to it as the CIA, Stanford,
Right.
you know, the U.S. Navy funded. But they were the ones funding it, and there was a very specific goal that they wanted, and so anyway. Wow. So these cutout organizations that were just buku money funded and did MKUltra projects. Okay. See how many of these you recognize. Cornell, Princeton, McGill, MCGILL. How many of our textbooks? Stanford, MIT, University of Minnesota, Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Columbia University, Emory, University of Denver, University of Florida. These were the documented main that was basically the top 10 funded MKUltra test places. They were the main ones doing the projects for MKUltra. And then they would do these science things, these projects. So like Jolly West, and I think for the sake of time, we might have to do a part 2 next week.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was like mental institutions, like tons of mental,
sure.
like one of the most notorious ones was Oak Ridge Mental Hospital. They would do quote unquote therapy on people. And okay, actually, before I get to the Jolly West stuff, the way that we found out, one of the main precursors that kind of like triggered the investigation and stuff like that, it's actually a documentary, but I don't recommend the documentary because they went a little too like, call it worldly. In their representation of it, but it's called Wormwood on I think it's on HBO. I don't recommend watching it. It's rough, it's raunchy, they went way too far with it. It didn't need to be this way.
I hate when documentaries do that because it's like I'm just trying to learn about it, and you're like,
it's not I guess it would be it's not a documentary, but it's the portrayal based on true story thing. But basically there was a scientist, Frank Olson. He's going to be a whistleblower, basically, is the we don't have a whole lot of evidence that proves that, but there's just enough that proves that he was planning on blowing the whistle on MKUltra.
Okay.
Well, prior to him blowing the whistle, becoming a whistleblower, he's at a party and Booty Egg just happens to be there. Slips him one of the LSB or whatever. It's got a different name, but basically creates a 4-day long trip. Slips him some of that. So he starts tripping. They take him to a hotel, and then he unalives himself by jumping out the window. But there's a person in the thing, and glass came running down with him as he went. So he would have to jumped out a closed window. And basically, they've confirmed now, hindsight, 50 years later or whatever, that he was most likely thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
His family even eventually found out that we didn't realize this was an MKUltra thing, and started the process to sue the government. And the CIA was like, hey, we'll give you a ridiculous amount of money to let this case go away.
How about that?
And from the, again, unofficial, alleged, kind of threatened him a little bit. You should just take this money because look at what happened to your dad, kind of thing. And so they took the money and dropped the case. But eventually somebody else came out and did eventually blow the whistle on it years later and all this other stuff. But yeah, so he was planning on being the original whistleblower.
Wow.
But back to Jolly West and the way that he ran the facilities in California is they were basically set up as quote unquote hippie crash pads, but they weren't. They were research places.
Yeah.
And he had the main people running those places were his personal graduate assistants. So just imagine, like, you're fresh out of college, you just graduated, and your boss has you doing basically MKUltra research on random hippies
Burnouts.
using LSD and stuff like that. Where are your morals at? And so you started like that, and the author of the book, that book that I had read, Chaos. He said that when he interviewed the GAs that were on file having been worked there, that they were super careful to be like, yeah, we worked there, but we didn't, and it was like, because there's no statute of limitations. If somebody did die as a product of what they did, there's no statute of limitations, so they could still go to jail for it. So they were super careful, and he said every single one of them was really weird, of just like almost like scripted in the way that they responded when he interviewed them. But they would go in and basically run these trials at these clinics for Jolly West, and he would come in and just check up on how they were doing and check up with the people. Well, Manson would come in every few days with his group of the family. And yeah, so he would come in pretty regularly to get his quote unquote LSD trips. Basically, they would all come in, and they would come in and get like tested for STDs and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem with everything and the way that it went down is that the ladies that also were on trial, Jolly West also inserted him into those as well.
Wow.
Apparently, they're the main guy that committed the unalivings. The main guy, his original confession, supposedly he confessed to way more unalivings than actually happened, or not actually happened, way more than they attributed to the family. And the rumor is that the reason why they attributed him, they didn't attribute them to the family, was because they were really pushing the idea that these were just random hate because Manson tried to go to the the recording artist that, turned him down, and they just happened to live there now. And then they went to the next door and did the same thing. And so they had to present it as though this was just this random, not really thought through thing.
Right.
But it sounds like there was actually quite a few other unalivings, and these weren't random.
They were more notable people.
And ultimately the whole point of what the government was trying to do was prove that hippies were dangerous and that they were,
and that it could happen to
that
anyone.
Movement. Yeah. And so you don't want your kids
terror.
going into that. Yeah. Into that lifestyle, because the hippie movement was also the anti-war movement.
Yes.
And the anti-government movement and the segregation movement. And so like there was a lot of reasons for them to not want the hippie movement to be successful.
You mean civil rights, not segregation, because segregation.
Desegregation.
Desegregation.
Or civil rights would be the proper term.
Same,
but anyway,
same thing,
and ultimately, because of the Manson case and because of, now think about how our media is pushing things like the plane wrecks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The media began shoving the Manson case everywhere. It was like I talked about early on.
Like Casey Anthony when we were in college.
Speaking of Casey Anthony, did you see the thing about her coming out as a huge LGBTQ rights and women's rights supporter? Anyway, it's on the news now. But anyway, the news.
That's great. We need to just drag that up every once in a while. Okay.
So the news, they tend to really push things for a reason. I still don't understand the airplane thing, because we've talked about it in here that we've confirmed that there's actually been less. And so they were shoving the Manson thing everywhere. It was so televised. And ultimately, the government got out of it what they wanted out of it, in that showing that these hippies were dangerous people.
Influencing public opinion.
Yeah.
Public perception.
Meanwhile, Manson is being treated by Jolly West, and every time that he commits a crime, even though he's already been to prison, every time he creates a crime after does a crime after prison, they just kind of like, oh yeah, he's fine, no big deal. And they try to like convince the government to allow him to go back to Mexico, which is where he originally got caught and went to prison the first time. Try to convince him that he's allowed to go back there to do soil management with a new job or something like that. And so like this dude, it's sketchy. Yeah. But and that's how Jolly West basically ran things. Yeah. And so it's just crazy to me to think that all this circumstantial evidence around Manson doesn't point to MKUltra ultimately. Yeah. And they're not there, with MKUltra. We barely scratched the surface. Okay. Like tonight. Next week, I think we need to do a part 2. I'll condense my notes to what we didn't share. And because we didn't get into the deep, heavy stuff this week. This was just kind of the surface, like, this is how MKUltra operated. Didn't, like,
I was going to say,
there's so much more. Yeah. I probably
kind of the rudimentary stuff, which is okay for me to.
Yeah, I didn't think it would take us this long to get through just kind of the basics of what MKUltra is. Yeah, I don't think I took out half of my notes. But yeah, and maybe we'll keep this one a little bit on the shorter end and just kind of end with that of just like, if you get a chance this week, watch the Chaos documentary and listen to him, and that is purely about pointing to Manson being an MKUltra and the family ultimately being MKUltra projects. Yeah. And so you'll be able to hear more in depth and more evidence based than just because what I'm sharing, I'm just regurgitating information I hear. That guy actually is the one that he's the one that proved, the guy who wrote the book on Manson is the one who proved that Jolly West was the lead scientist for MKUltra ultimately. But yeah, so then MKUltra, just kind of wrapping today's episode up, and next week we'll continue with part 2, and I'll even put in the title that this is part 1 just to kind of get you guys excited for part 2 next week. But yeah, just kind of wrapping up MKUltra this week. Yeah, I shared it at the beginning, but I'm going to reshare it now. In that, so MKUltra, everybody that was in charge when they retired in 1973, they had all documentation destroyed.
Yeah.
And then in 1975, they had a Senate hearing. Basically, we watched the Senate hearing on like the UFOs and stuff like that. They had a Senate hearing, and in the Senate hearing, they basically didn't confirm anything at all that they did. But they started revealing some of this stuff because of some of the evidence. And guess how many people went to jail because of MKUltra?
Probably none. None.
And the same people who were operating MKUltra continued on as though nothing really happened.
Right.
Now, whether they continued doing the same kind of research or whether they shifted focus, we don't know, because we don't even know if MKUltra actually ended. It might still be called MKUltra. They might not have even had to rename it, because anything after 1973, everything is redacted and you can't get information on it. And so we don't even know what happened in the files that we do actually have.
Yeah.
Because they won't release it. And so even just based off of that,
who needs closure, right?
No, we'll do. Yeah, for real. Yeah. Next week we'll get into the cases that they found, because I shared briefly about tonight. Yeah, on this episode, I shared briefly about the universities and the trials and stuff like that. Next week I'll get into the actual cases that were the confirmed MKUltra research and what kind of heinous things that they did and some of that stuff. But with that, man, watch Chaos if you can. Watch the documentary. I'll say this: I don't think it's going to be too crazy, because the guy that's, I guess he's in the documentary on Netflix as well, the guy that wrote the book. Yeah. He seems like a pretty legit dude. I don't think he would have let him go a little too crazy with it. Also, he tried to convince them it needed to be an entire series rather than just an hour-and-a-half long documentary. So I think it's going to be so jam-packed that I don't think they'll have time for things like that. So, but and you mean like making things unnecessarily graphic? Yeah. And so, but with that, I'm recommending it, but I'm also not. Check it out before you watch it, because some of those Netflix documentaries can be a little rough. Right. So if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, honestly, I'll probably check out reviews before I watch it just to make sure. Too. We've done that on a doc before, and it was just like, why are you showing this? You could just say that he had a harem. Yeah, you could have just said it. Yep. So be careful with it, but if it does check out, I encourage you to watch it, because that book, or read the book, buy the book and read it. It's crazy. But with that, look forward to next week, and hopefully we'll have Phil back for that recording. With that, Phil's going to be dropped into chaos with it, and he's going to be like, wait, what? It's going to be amazing. But great. Come back next week, week 2. This sleeper agent's going to go to sleep. So. Yeah, me too. And with that, thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all of those things, comment, give us feedback, that kind of thing. Join the Discord if you haven't already. Man, we have good conversations in there. And with that, love you guys. You're amazing. Keep being BA. Yeah. And bye. Okay, bye. Of giants, when the earth was wild and free, a creature roamed the valleys, cloaked in mystery. Is he born of angels' blood and man, a Nephilim so tall, or a shadow of the fallen, yet heeding the Maker's call? He's a biblically accurate Bigfoot, with a lineage from the skies. Not a myth or legend, but a truth that never dies. Is he a remnant of the Nephilim, a titan standing tall?
Or does he have the word of God upon him, the last to hear the call?